During the course of the 1970s, there was a major right-wing lobbying effort led by business to essentially concentrate wealth among the very richest. That was successful by the end of the decade, immensely successful, and it's surprising there was so little pushback against it, since what we think of as the political left was relatively powerful at that time. You had a union movement that at the beginning of the decade comprised over 20% of the working population. You had a group of young people associated with different groups advocating for gender, race, and ethnicity kinds of issues. You had an environmental movement, and none of these movements were able to really blunt the corporate agenda here. And the question is, why were they so ineffective? And when one looks at the left in this period, several things strike the observer. One of them is that it was extremely fragmented. The union movement and sort of the new social movements around race, gender, and sexuality had intense animosity towards each other. The animosity resulted in mostly inability really to work together. The new social movements generally were disorganized and are arranged by different social groups. Women had their own group, gays had their own group, blacks, Indians, Hispanics had their own separate groups. You had the notion of what's called identity politics, the idea that these groups are really not supposed to work together. You're not supposed to, the idea of a broad left, a united broad left, which had been at least in principle something the left had worked towards in an earlier era, had essentially disappeared. And there's the old phrase, either we hang together or we hang separately. The left, in effect, decided to hang separately, which is exactly how it played out. In addition, I think you had the problem that the political left in the United States comprised a large group of people who did not really favor a focus on economic issues. The new social movements mostly were uninterested in economics as a matter of principle. Their constituency was not working class, but affluent upper middle class youth. The unions, for their part, were becoming increasingly focused upon foreign policy, promoting anti-communist unions overseas, and were losing interest, basically, in domestic union organizing. So you might say that basic failures of the American left contributed immensely to the right-wing success of this period and to the concentration of wealth.